Alright, so let's get this cracking. So yeah, in this video I'm just going to be going through a brief history lesson on the inhabitants of France during the Middle Ages, what they call the medieval empire or medieval Europe. And this book was published in 1745, and it pretty much goes into, it's pretty much a compilation of various explorers or travelers that went into different regions around the world, whether it be Asia, Europe, Africa, or whatnot. And they were pretty much describing the customs, the culture, the scenery, and the inhabitants of said regions. So in this book, it gives an account of France, and it gives us a very interesting account on how the inhabitants of France looked like during the mid-18th century. So yeah, we're gonna go into it. I don't think I've seen anyone go into this. So yeah, here it says in page 416, a tour in France and Italy. So right here, pretty much going through the various cities in France and just, pretty much describing the city, pretty much describing the scenery. And here it says, France in general would be very pleasant and agreeable country, had the enclosures and pasturage, is neither so fertile generally as Italy or England, nor yet has no ground altogether so barren as either of them. Very few woods, parks or forests, and very few villas, or noble country houses. Rivers not many, and of those scarce, any navigable. Much corn, but not plump and large. Wines in good quantity, but without any flavor. So let's go down now. So here's pretty much giving you a map. Then it continues and it says, and most of the tar and crabbed. So let's just go down to get to the crux. So I'm just going to start here. Nor has their language any certain pronunciation, but varies continually, as he that speaks affects, so that they do not understand, but guess at each other's meaning. Yet it is esteemed the sweetest in the world, allow the advantage of the nose and lisping. Now this is the meat of it. Their complexions generally yellow and swarthy, the men withered, the women thick-lipped, flat-nosed, a little turning up, which gives an air to faces, and is emulated by our English ladies. You see that? So not only did it said their complexion was yellow and swarthy, it said the women were thick-lipped and flat-nosed. So we know exactly who this is talking about. This is talking about Negroes. This isn't talking about white people. White people, the phenotype of a Caucasian person is generally not thick-lipped or flat-nosed. And we know that already. And their complexion being yellow and swarthy. So yellow is pretty much going into someone that's light-skinned, and swarthy is pretty much going into someone that's dark-skinned. I'll give a visual representation of what I'm talking about. So here, you see this lady here with the hat. That's a person with a yellow complexion. That's a visual representation. It says 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language, being of a bright color, the color of gold. And here at the bottom is pretty much a newspaper article from 1777 describing a Negro man named Nace of a yellow complexion. So that's how you know, just to give you guys further emphasis on what a yellow complexion was alluding to during that time. And here, this will be a swarthy complexion man, a man with dark skin. And as you see in the top right, 1828 American Dictionary of the English Language, swarthy being of a dark hue or dusky complexion, tawny. In warm climates, the complexion of men is universally swarthy or black. You see that? So black and swarthy can pretty much be used interchangeably. And when you read at the bottom, it says black as the swarthy African. So it's associating swarthy with being African. And the newspaper article at the bottom, it says, a score of years ago, Manager McGraw signed a Negro of a swarthy complexion. So just to give further emphasis on what a swarthy complexion was alluding to back then. So let us go back. So yeah, So not only did it describe the inhabitants of France as yellow or swarthy complexion, it also described a woman as thick-lipped and flat-nosed. So that's clear as day. Okay, so this is a book called The Scottish Antiquary, Old Northern Notes and Queries, Volume 5, published in 1891. So let's see what this book is saying. So this is page 109, and it says, "This chapel still exists under the name of Lady Esther's Chapel, but the present French Protestant congregation hold their cult in a chapel in George Street. Amongst the Kirk papers in the Advocate's Library is a manuscript entitled Rule des Déposés, a list of pastors who had been suspended by order of the Kirk and had since decamped after recanting from the Huguenot faith. As some of these names appear in transactions of the United Scotch and Huguenot Kirks, we may suppose that this rule was issued as a warning, as a sort of warning or description, for the benefit of such persons as might inadvertently have been harboring them or had knowingly done so." So just to give a brief account on the Huguenots were pretty much French Protestants. And in 1685, I believe the king at the time in France was King Louis XVI, who sent out a decree to expel the Huguenots from France because he wanted the region at the time to be wholly Catholicism, or wholly Catholic, I should say. So this is pretty much going to give us a description of various French Huguenot ministers. So we're going to go into it now. It says, "Some of the paragraphs are almost photographic in their personal details. We read that George Sauvis, alias Solas, late minister of Fontainebleau, has been suspended for misdemeanor, that he is a short man with black hair and aged about 40. So the first account doesn't give too much detail. And again, Jean de Vauzan, minister in Anjou, a short man with an alkaline nose, a wide mouth and scanty beard, suspended for infamous depravities." So here it gives a little bit more. It says a wide mouth and an alkaline nose. So wide mouth, that would be a characteristic of a Negro, and the alkaline nose is basically what they would call a Roman nose. So that nose is more so characteristic of a Caucasian person, but at the same time you do have a lot of black people that have that type of nose as well. Then it says, "And still a third of equally unprepossessing characteristics, namely Jérémie Frevier, a minister from Basse-Languedoc, very tall, with black and frizzy hair." So black and frizzy hair, that's in reference to someone that has curly or woolly hair. "Swarthy complexion." So again, we've already been able to ascertain what swarthy complexion is in reference to. Wide nostrils meaning a thick nose, and coarse thick lips. So that goes without saying, coarse thick lips. So this is basically giving further emphasis on how the French looked at the time. This was published in 1891, and it was found in a manuscript from, I would assume this manuscript is centuries old. So it's pretty much re-emphasizing what the description of the third minister is, re-emphasizing the physical description on how the French looked during the mid-18th century, with a swarthy complexion, thick lips, and a wide nose, or a flat nose, I should say. Okay, so now we're going to be touching on Louis Marie Therese, the Black Nun of Moret. So it says, also known as the Black Nun of Moret, 1658 to 1730, was a French nun and the subject of accounts from the 18th century in which she was dubiously, meaning doubtfully, claimed to be the daughter of the Queen of France, Mary Theresa of Spain. Her existence is mentioned in several other sources. So this is her, a black woman that was a nun. And just to get straight to the point, this was King Louis XIV's daughter. And King Louis XIV was a king of France. So here it says, the black nun of Moret, Louis Mary Teresa, was a Benedict nun in the Abbey of Moret-sur-Lyon. She was called Mauress of Moret, and a portrait of her exists in the Bibliothèque Saint-Geneviève in Paris. Research conducted by the Société de l'Histoire de Paris et d'Île-de-France, published in 1924 by Honoré Champion Editions, concluded that this pastel portrait was painted around 1680 by the same hand which painted the series of 22 pastel portraits of kings of France from Louis IX to Louis XIV. So Louis XIV, that's her father, between 1681 and 1683 on the initiative of Father Claude du Molinet, librarian of Saint-Geneviève Abbey. So the pastel portrait is this is what they're talking about. And it was painted alongside 22 pastel portraits of King of France from Louis IX to Louis XIV. So that's how you know that this wasn't just any woman, right? So here it says, shortly after the death of French Queen Mary Teresa of Spain, wife of Louis XIV, in 1683, courtiers said that this woman could be the daughter, allegedly black, to whom the Queen gave birth in 1664. So that's nonsense. Because Mary was the wife of Louis XIV. Now, this wasn't Mary Teresa's daughter, because that would mean that she stepped out on Louis XIV, and if that was known among the people during that time, she would have got put to death. If that was known among the people during that time, she would have got put to death expeditiously. So yeah, this wasn't her daughter. That's just pure modern day speculation. The nun herself seemed convinced of her royal birth, and Saint Simon states that she once greeted the Dauphin as my brother. So the Dauphin, this person, was one of Louis XIV's sons, and the nun literally greeted Dauphin as her brother. So that gives us further insight on who she actually was. But Louis XIV, he didn't recognize this nun as his daughter, because he had many different children by different mistresses. There was a lot of children that he didn't recognize as his own. It says, a letter sent on the 13th of June 1685 by the secretary of the king's household to M.D. Bazin, general agent of the clergy, and a pension of £300 granted by King Louis XIV to the nun Louise Mary Therese on the 15th of October 1695, to be paid to her all her life in the convent or everywhere she could be by the guards of the royal treasure present and to come, suggests that she may indeed have had royal connections. And of course, why else would he pay her a lifetime supply of resources? Because that was his daughter, but he just didn't want to recognize her as his daughter. That's just where it was. And of course, Wikipedia can't outright come and state that this nun was Louis XIV's daughter, because it will give us further insight on how King Louis XIV looked. Because as we can see, this woman's dark skin, right? So, if she was mixed race, then they could have possibly painted a narrative that, King Louis XIV, being quote unquote Caucasian, had a child with an African woman. But that's not the case, because this woman's dark skin. She didn't come out mixed race or, with a light skin complexion. She came out as dark skin, so, they can't do that. So let's get into this source, right? So this book, hold on. So this book is entitled The Age of Louis XIV by Voltaire, published in 1763. Let's start here. It says, he had by his queen, Louis XIV is talking about, besides the Dauphin, 2 sons and 3 daughters who died in their infancy. who died in their infancy. His armies were more successful. There were only 2 of his natural children that died in the cradle. 8 of them were legitimized, and 5 of them had children. He had likewise by a lady who lived much with Madame de Montespan, a daughter, whom he never acknowledged, and whom he married to a gentleman near Versailles of the name of Lacquen. See that? So, as I said, he had many children in which he didn't recognize. I believe he had over 20 children by many different mistresses. Now, the guy couldn't stay monogamous, even though, that was the custom at the time, according to church tradition, to stay monogamous, but these kings couldn't do it. It says, some people suspected, and not without reason, that a certain lady in the Abbey of Moret, so this is talking about the nun, was his daughter. You see that? She was very brown, as we saw in the painting. Yeah, she was very brown, and resembled him in other respects. The king, when he placed her in the convent, gave a portion of 20,000 crowns. The opinion she had of her birth gave her an air of pride, of which the superiors of the convent loudly complained. Madame de Maintenon, in a journal to Fontainebleau, went to the convent of Moret, and willing to inspire this nun with more modest sentiments, endeavored to banish the idea that nourished her pride. Madame, said nun, the trouble which a lady of your rank takes to come on purpose to tell me that I am not the king's daughter fully convinces me that I am. You see that? So she had no doubt in her mind that she was King Louis XIV's daughter. And the people in the convent at the time was trying to dismiss those claims, but she was fully convinced. And yeah, if anyone knew the truth, it would have been her. I mean, who are we to tell her that she's not so-and-so's daughter? And we have all the evidence. I mean, the king paid her off to, paid her a lifetime supply of resources to stay in the convent. She has a pastel portrait that was painted alongside the paintings of 22 different French kings by the same artist. I mean, you just have to put 2 and 2 together, She was she was the king's unrecognized daughter. So here is pretty much the same account, but here it says that she was extremely suave. Voltaire recorded long afterwards, and otherwise resembled it. You see that? So I just wanted to get into this because it says she was extremely suave, but in this one it says that she was very brown, I believe. Where was it? Yeah, it says here she was very brown. So again, just to show you the true definition of what suave meant, it was interchangeable with dark and brown and black, just to give further emphasis for the naysayers. And just to give even a bit of insight into Louis XIV, it says, was the King of France from 1643 until his death in 1715. His verified reign of 72 years and 110 days is the longest of any sovereign. Although Louis XIV's France was emblematic of the age of absolutism in Europe, the king surrounded himself with a variety of significant political, military, and cultural figures. Okay. So yeah, just to show you, look, he had many. Look at the amount of illegitimate children he had. He had many, through many different mistresses, and even, I just wanted to go into a few different depictions as well of the inhabitants of France. You have this person right here. This is a stained glass in worms of a French soldier. So this is a French soldier, look, a brown-skinned man. Here you have is a depiction of Charles V arrives at Reims for his coronation manuscript illumination, early 15th century. So Charles V was the King of France, and as we can see, they haven't fully whitewashed everything. There's a lot of things that they left out. Here you can see those two figures in the far left still have their brown complexion. The person to the far right has his brown complexion also, and here as well. These would be the cardinals or the Pope. They still been able to maintain their brown complexion. They wasn't able to whitewash everything, and even the whitewashed individuals still have remnants of the brown paint on their face. So you have that one there. You even have this one. This is a funerary, a funeral of John the First, who died in infancy. It says the child mortality rate was very high in medieval Europe, and John may have died from any number of causes. But rumors of poisoning spread immediately after his death, including one which said that he had been murdered with a pin by his arm, as many people benefited from it. And as John's father had also died in strange circumstances, the cause of his death is still not known today. So yeah, this is John the First as a baby. He died in infancy. But yeah, as you can see to the far right, you can see a bunch of figures that maintain their brown skin because they wasn't fully whitewashed. And even the white figures, they still have the brown paint on their face. You know, it's clear as day. So, and you see the two figures right there, still have the brown paint on their face. So in a lot of these medieval manuscripts, you will see, especially in France as well, you will see these things. Because for some reason, they just wasn't able to whitewash everything. And they just did a poor job. So you have that one right there. You have this one. So this one's still fully intact. You see the individuals with their brown skin. This is Jean-François, kneeling before Gaston III Phoebus, Count of Foix. So yeah, this is Gaston, the Count of Foix, which was a region in France. You know, you got this right here. See all the individuals were black men. It seems as if the knights are killing the king. It says French illuminated manuscripts in the 15th century from French National Library. You know, see all the men still with their brown or dark skin. So this one's still pretty much intact. And you even got this one as well. This is the tournament book of Reine d'Anjou in 1447, found in the collection of Bibliothèque Nationale de France. And you still see a lot of the figures with their brown skin too. In the top right, you see a mixture. You see remnants of the brown paint, but you also see a bit of the white paint as well, trying to overshadow it. You see here a lot of the participants in the event. You see this man with his brown skin still. See this person here with his brown skin. You see the noblewoman. A lot of them still have remnants of the brown skin on their face, or the brown paint. Here as well. See these figures here with the brown paint on their face. These figures playing the trumpet. So yeah, that's just another example right there. You have these figures in the center. And you can also see their thick lips too. Then you have here, so here's the Bal des Sauvages. Ball of the Wild Men was a masquerade ball held on the 28th of June 1393 in Paris, at which Charles VI of France performed in a dance with 5 members of the French nobility. 4 of the dancers were killed in a fire caused by a torch brought in by Charles's brother Louis I, Duke of Orleans. You see that? So yeah, a catastrophe happened, as we just read, but the main premise that I wanted to get into is again, we can see it. See the person right here, face fully still intact. Right there, right here. And even the men that was mocking the wild men in their costumes still see the brown paint on their face. But they were able to whitewash their feet and their hands. And you see the figure up there playing the instrument, still the brown paint on their face. And yeah, this was pretty much an event where the French nobility was mocking the Caucasian, pretty much, because the Caucasian was, during that, a lot of the Caucasian at the time grew an excessive amount of body hair, and they were living in a beast-like state. So all people at the time who was the noble, with the nobility, would mock them, and this was a prime example of it. And yeah, a catastrophe at this event specifically, a catastrophe happened where 4 men died due to a fire.